Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Alight's Workshare series. You have been listening to a local Zambian local Zambian band called the Colombo Hit Parade. I wanted to introduce you to some local Zambian music as we get started this morning. So, as we get started this morning, we want to welcome you all here today. My name is Jeremy Haldeman, and I'm the Director of Government Affairs and Advocacy for Alight. I often describe my job as connecting doers, thinkers, legislators, and policymakers with our amazing staff, volunteers, and customers around the world. Now, many of you know us and have been on our journey as we become Alight over the course of the past year, and know that our purpose as an organization is to inspire and unleash the abundance in every person. We try to live up to that promise every single day. And this Workshare series is a reflection of that. In the midst of the coronavirus, Alight teams have been continuing their important work around the world. And what we wanted to do is give some of them the opportunity to share what they've been up to and to give our global community of supporters the chance to connect and to learn more. So I'm going to run through a couple of housekeeping items before we start. I think most people are used to Zoom now, but just a couple reminders. Please keep yourselves on mute so we can hear our speakers today. And we're going to run through a couple of things, but at the end, we will have time for a Q&A. But this is casual and interactive, right? We want you all to feel super connected to the work that we're doing around the world. So feel free to put any questions into the chat and we'll answer them as real time as well. So I have a lot of colleagues on the call as well. First is our Global Connector team. You can wave right now, and you're going to see them in the chat as well. We also have a team of Alight employees who are working with sisters around the world. They can wave as well now, and they're going to be in the chat as well, answering any questions that you all have in real time. Now, we also want to take a quick moment to introduce, we have a lot of Catholic sisters around the world doing unbelievable work who are joining us today. So if you want to come off of your, come on to video and wave to everybody as well, because we want to see you all as well. So you will note that today's Workshare series is to spotlight the incredible work that Catholic sisters are doing all over the world. As you'll hear today, they live their lives in the communities they serve. But when COVID hit, they actually doubled down to provide new support during the pandemic. And they are a global force. There are nearly 700,000 Catholic nuns around the world today, and they are in a unique position to help the world's most vulnerable everywhere. Alight staff have been working with Catholic sisters throughout the COVID response, and actually our work started with them in El Salvador about 2 years ago. And we are really lucky today to have with us two amazing people at the center of our work. Alight's very own Annie Nolte Henning and Sister Estrida. Annie has actually been with us for 8 years, and she's had two different Alight lives. The first 5 years was working with Alight's global HR teams. But for the past 3 years, she's been working on a series of Alight startups and co-creations and collaborations with new partners, including a really diverse group of Catholic sisters, the Burning Man community, and other Alight teams that have been wanting to try new things. She's based in Minneapolis. We're also extremely fortunate to have with us Sister Estrida. Sister Estrida is a Dominican missionary sister who's living and working in Zambia. She works in communications with her congregation of sisters and also does social work. We've been really fortunate to work with Sister Estrida as part of our global sister COVID-19 response. Now, before they get into their presentation, we're going to do something that we like to call 5 and 5. It's 5 questions in 5 minutes. Now, Sister Estrida, you're up. You ready?
Yes.
Great. Well, welcome, and thank you again for joining us this morning and for all of your amazing work that you do. So, first question goes to you. Can you tell us, what does a typical day look like for you?
Okay, so I begin my day with prayer, a community breakfast. Then I go in the community with where I serve the pregnant and lactating mothers as well as children below the age of 2, where I work with them providing key messages around health-seeking behavior, nutrition, and WASH messages. Then I do office work. After that, go back to my community, pray, eat, and sleep.
Wow, that's a very full day, but that sounds really amazing. Can you tell us you obviously do so much work and so much different type of work, but where do you find your inspiration to do the things that you do every day?
I think I get my inspiration from our founder, who at his time wanted to fight heresy among the believers, to give to people the true knowledge, the true evangelization. And even Jesus himself said, "What is truth?" So truth to us means always seeking to find knowledge, seeking to find what is pertaining on the ground, so that once you are speaking, you are addressing the real and critical issues, you are well informed. So that inspires me mostly when I do my activities, to ensure that whatever I'm doing is well informed and I'm at par with the information that I have, which I also provide to the people. So I'm inspired by our founder, Dominic.
That's amazing. Thank you. So the third question also, so this can often be difficult, but can you describe your work in 3 words?
Okay.
It's
First, I
tough.
would say, I know. I would say, first of all, I would say love, then hope, and service.
Oh, that's amazing. Thank you. All right. The next 2 questions are actually going to go to Annie. So Annie, you ready? You're up.
Ready. Let's do it.
Okay. So can you tell us who is your hero and why?
So we're gonna get into this. I don't want to spoil the presentation, but there's hundreds of thousands of them around the world, and it started with Sister Irene O'Neill, and the sisters have been just a group of women I never expected to come into my life, but they really wrote the book on being humanitarians and not only do they keep me in line most days, but they just really keep me motivated to the bigger picture of the work I do. So I definitely consider them my heroes.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, we can see it, and I'm sure we'll all see it even more during the presentation. Okay, so obviously the world's in the middle of a global health pandemic. So, but I'm curious, is there any new hobby that you've actually picked up during this time, and describe how and why you picked it up?
Sure. So like many of us, we were grounded in March, and I consider myself a recovering travelholic since then. And so I really needed to find something to not go crazy. And I'm a farmer's daughter from Nebraska. And so I decided to, dig deep into my farming roots and start my first garden. And so it's been a really interesting process. Many calls to my mother asking what on earth I'm doing, but it went well. I don't know if I'll do it again, but it was a way to really manage the uncertainty and stress of this time.
Very cool. This is not going to be a 6th question, but it's 5A or 5B.
Okay.
Out of the garden, did you have something that you particularly loved?
Ooh, banana peppers for sure.
Oh, interesting.
Because a lot of things just didn't work, but the banana peppers were great. So I'll do those again, if anything.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Okay, cool. So thank you both for your kind of the insights into those, into you all. So we are going to turn it over to Sister and Annie for their presentation. But I'm just going to reiterate at the beginning. Remember, this is casual and interactive, and any questions that folks have, please put them into the chat. Our amazing team of sisters and Alight staff will be answering them in real time. And we will also be having the Q&A time at the end as well. But as they're going through, please feel to drop your questions into the chat, and we're going to answer them in real time. So grab your coffee or tea and sit back, and I will turn it over to Annie and Sister Estrida now.
Great. So thank you, Jeremy. I'm going to just give a really quick background on our work, Alight's work with sisters, since many of you that know us might be like, I thought Alight was non-religious. What's up with working with sisters? So I'm going to talk you through a little bit of that. So in 2018, Sister Irene O'Neill, who is a Sisters of St. Joseph of Carondelet from over in St. Paul, Minnesota, came to Alight, and she runs an organization called Sisters Rising Worldwide. They work to bring resources to sisters deep within the trenches, all around the world, and connect sisters together. And so Sister Irene is telling us all about the work that these sisters are doing around the globe for the vulnerable and displaced. And we're like, hey, Alight does that kind of work too. But Irene quickly put us in our place, and we learned that there's actually like a lot of sisters, and they're absolutely everywhere. And so while we are a non-religious organization, Alight's been was quickly convinced by Sister Irene that sisters are truly moving the world. And we were motivated as Alight to support these sisters in any way that we could to accelerate their impact and the work that they do even more. And so we named this collaboration the Color Movement. And so you might hear me bring up that name later on. So we started our work together in El Salvador, working with a group of sisters who nourish and protect youth and women from gang violence and human trafficking. And so we begin the work, and at the same time, groups of families, Central American families, are gathering together and starting to head north toward the US-Mexico border, fleeing some of these very same type of issues that the sisters are working to protect. And so we were quickly connected to sisters that were working all along the migrant trail, almost as like an underground railroad type, that were shepherding migrant families and ensuring that they stay safe along their journey. And so for over the past year, we've also been working alongside sisters on both sides of the US-Mexico border who work in migrant shelters and give migrants a little piece of home while they wait to find out what comes next for their journeys. And then COVID came, and it's changed our world. And when Alight thought about different ways that we could quickly get aid and protection to the most vulnerable communities, we looked to the sisters who were already in these places, and the Color Movement expanded globally overnight. And so I'm excited to tell you a little bit about our sisters' global COVID response alongside Sister Astrida. So we can go to the first slide, thank you. So we've all been affected by COVID, and it's impacted everyone. But the people most at risk are those who are already neglected, and those who are refugees, marginalized communities, low-income families, people living already on the brink. And COVID presents a really unique challenge to these families because they don't have the protection from the virus. They don't have protection from the economic effects of the virus or access to food or healthcare. So I'd like to hear from Sister Astrida what she's found as the unique challenges of the people you serve.
Thank you, Annie. I would say that typically the sisters are in communities where usually you don't find any government agency or where most people dread to go to. And we mix with people who are literally lacking, like you said, healthcare, people lacking food and supplies, then they don't have access to basic needs per se. So the most challenging times are the times of COVID, because we are telling people to eat well, boost their immunity system, and you find that there's no food security in the household. You find that they can't have social distance because of maybe the population, the high density population they live in. So typically these are the people that we find ourselves with or we mix with. And I feel some of the other things that have really brought to our attention as sisters is lack of information for them to be able to keep themselves safe and their families. So most of the COVID-19 mitigation measures were addressed in official languages. And you know that some people do not speak the official language, like for example, English or French. So they will need those translated in a local language that is close to them. So that has been one of, a few of the challenges that we have experienced.
Thank you. All right, next slide, please. So there is good news in all of this. The good news is that there's 642,000 women already doing this work, Catholic sisters all around the world. And so these women are already not only living and taking care of these people, they truly share their lives with these communities. And so they understand better than anyone how to reach the unreachable. They're a sisterhood of women who have dedicated their lives to the most marginalized and those who don't have a voice of their own. And so sisters like the one you're seeing right now, Sister Alice, who runs a women's health center in South Sudan. Sisters like Concepcion in El Salvador, who runs a youth center at on one of the most dangerous streets in San Salvador, and sisters like Astrida that we have with us here in Zambia. And so the color movement exists to amplify and accelerate this work. The next slide, please. Thank you. So when we thought about, okay, so how do we actually respond globally to COVID alongside the sisters? We tapped into our amazing partnership with Sisters Rising Worldwide. And through them, we were able to activate sister networks to reach dozens and then hundreds of sisters. So this photo you're seeing is across probably 12 different time zones of sisters telling us what they were going through and what they needed most. And what we've learned is that while sisters did the best that they could, they often didn't have tools available to protect themselves or their communities. And so while they're trusted activators in their communities, a lot of the things they lacked were like the resources, knowledge, and tools to communicate accurate information on COVID to those really hard to reach communities like Sister Astrida just talked to us about. So Sister Astrida, can you share a little bit about your own experience and what was going on with your community during the first few days of COVID?
Okay, thank you. And I want to express that the first time that we heard of a case in our country, in Zambia, we were really alarmed together with the sisters. And I personally said, I'm not going to go out at any cost. And we were laughing how we're going to get our food supply in the convent, how we're going to feed ourselves. So we started gardening, like you said, so that we could get vegetables from the garden. But some food essentials would eventually run out. So then when we were invited to participate in Sisters Rising Worldwide, when she goes back out, and we were also encouraged to participate in the trainings that were being offered by Alight. So we're not hesitant to do that. I think we were really excited because we thought this is a platform that will provide us with information of how to take care of ourselves and our communities. Fortunately, Alight came at a good time, at the right time when the sisterhood needed such an organization to provide the key messages around COVID. So the training that actually we had were critical and crucial. We were assigned a doctor. We were also assigned a project manager to journey with us throughout the process. And we're also reminded that you are not alone if you need anything, because there were a lot of myths and misconceptions around COVID-19. So once we received the message, which was timely to us, we were encouraged. And we felt really this is something that the world needs. This is something that our community needs. Such information is cardinal and crucial at the moment. So I thought, why can't we go out and tell our community about how to prevent themselves from COVID-19 and the other mitigation measures that were being actually taught to us? So for me, the best platform to use was the radio station. First of all, I thought I'm keeping myself safe and also keep the community safe, because at the time, like I said, we were not sure of the transmission ways that COVID would be transmitted to another person. So we went on the radio and we said that we're going to ensure that the information we provide is being heard by a person in the lowest community, the lowest population, those who cannot understand our official language, English, because at the time our Ministry of Health were televising messages in English, the official language, and we have many dialects that people use. So we translated at least to 6 languages, local languages, with a team of sisters. So each week would mobilize a group of sisters with different languages. And I remember the first radio show, someone phoned in and said, I'm very excited about listening from you sisters. Thank you for coming forth with information that I can understand clearly. I couldn't understand why someone asked to screen me from one shop to another, why they were insisting I should wash my hands. And now I understand the importance of doing so, why I should mask up. So it provided an opportunity for us to remain close to the community. Alight did not only provide the key messages for us to use as we spoke to our people on the radio, but also they provided the supplies that were needed, like hand washing buckets, face masks that we were able to distribute to our communities to keep them safe and healthy.
Thanks, Sister Estrida. Sister Estrida really showed us that the sisters globally are very, very creative in coming up with ways to reach the unreachable. So like she said, 6 languages, that's incredible. Sister Estrida, I have to ask, did you convey all the messages in 6 languages, or did you have some help?
No, of course not. I could do 2 languages plus English. So what used to happen was every week would televise these key messages. I would divide it among the sisters with different languages. But the goodness was that the panelists would understand each other. So each one would just chip in, add on to information that was missing, or maybe when a caller phones in, they're using a different language that the panelists are not using. If one of us was able to understand, would respond and keep the messages going and the conversations going with the community.
Great, thank you for sharing. Yeah, so like Sister Estrida just shared, Alight, we created alongside partners, GHR Foundation, IDEO.org, a big group of medical doctor volunteers came together with a 3-pronged approach to help the sisters reach as many people as possible. So that was through emergency planning calls with the sisters to not only protect themselves, but know how to protect their communities. Through microgrants, transferring them emergency funding to make sure that they were prepared. And then through the health messaging that Estrida just shared on the radio. So we were able to do this through the network of sisters and Sisters Rising Worldwide, everywhere from El Salvador to Nigeria to India to Brazil. Altogether, this incredible cohort of medical providers did nearly 75 medical training calls with sisters. And those sisters that needed emergency resources, things like soap or food to distribute during lockdown, were able to get these things through the microgrants. And then the messaging was really, really huge. We were able to take public health messaging with accurate COVID information and have it translated into all the different languages that the sisters need. And they were able to use it in many, many different ways. So things like, of course, the radio, WhatsApp messages, posters, Facebook, and through it all, through the microgrants and the messaging, the sisters were able to reach more than 19 million people during this COVID campaign. So we're so proud of the sisters' tenacity and creativity to make sure that no one was left behind in this, and that we were really able to reach as many families living on the brink as possible. So next slide, please. So this is ongoing work. COVID, the pandemic is not over, and we continue to focus on sisters living in places that are still in critical stages of the virus. And we consider this to continue to be an all hands on deck moment until every person is safe from the virus. So if you want to support, let us know in the chat, and Jeremy will be sharing more after the Q&A. Sister Estrida, is there anything else you would like to share?
Yeah, I wanted just to mention that during our sensitization programs, apart from the radio programs that we're doing, we did also mobile sensitizations. And also sisters were available to do screening for public gatherings. Of course, following the guidelines, like if the maximum of participants in a public gathering should be 50, the sisters would be there with doctors to screen everyone for COVID. And they ensured that in schools and hospitals, wherever they were, they had put up all these mitigation measures, ensuring that no one goes in without washing hands, without a mask, and wherever possible, they would provide these needed supplies. But I also want to say that we've been able to reach out to our communities by providing psychosocial care, then mental health and well-being. Because the pandemic came at a time when no one expected, so it disrupted many things. Some people even lost their beloved ones. Some family members were sick. Some lost their jobs. So through the interactions that we've had, especially on the radio program, we were able to provide hope. We were able also to provide a timely intervention. Like people would say, I can't go to church. I feel depressed. When I lose a loved one, no one is supporting me. They can't travel, they can't come. We were able to put on the panelists priests who could provide the spiritual support and care. So we've realized that we're closer to the people at this time of need, not only providing the physical support, but also the mental well-being and the psychological well-being.
That's a good point. Thank you. Thank you to you and all the sisters around the world. We're really proud of being able to work alongside 1,300 sisters over the past few months. So I'm going to hand it back over to Jeremy and team.
Awesome. Sister Estrada and Annie, thank you both so much for highlighting that amazing work. It's really, really, really great. So we have a bunch of questions that have come in. For anyone else that has some additional ones, you have plenty to drop them into the chat now, so please do. So I'm going to turn it over to you all to answer some of these questions if you're ready. Our first question actually comes from Maureen Reed, who's one of Alight's amazing board members. The question is this. So, you know, oftentimes preventative services, as we know around the world, can get less and less attention than do the services that treat an existing situation, right? So Maureen's wondering, how did the sisters break through that kind of natural human inclination to overlook prevention and jump to treatment?
All you, Estrada.
Okay. I would say that we were having both. We were preventing as well as treating. So in terms of prevention, like I said, we're trying to use platforms that would prevent the spread of COVID-19, not to get close to the people, wherever possible, transmit these messages on radio where it was timely. And like I said, we found that people could call back, give us some best practices from the messages that we're providing. Then in terms of treatment, these are the people that actually we found that they needed support and care. They needed the supplies and timely. So we're able to reach out, like ensuring that we're also staying safe, social distance, practicing social distance, as well as masking up. And where it was possible, would simply say we will leave the supply at a position where they could pick them up, avoiding as much contact as possible so that we stay safe. And then where there were public gatherings and mobile sensitizations, we ensure that sisters and the co-workers were in vehicles and not getting contact or in contact with our community. So like in open markets, so they could go with megaphones, billboards and such kind of activities, but ensuring that we are not closer to the people in case we are the ones with the virus, or we might get it from our community. So I think this is how we've been trying to stay safe and keep our community safe.
That's great. So Sister Estrada, you were talking during the presentation about how you turned to radio to convey a lot of the public health messaging work. Did you previously, was this a medium that you had previously used? How did you end up getting to that place of figuring out that this was going to be a way to kind of safely and really to deliver the public health messaging to the local communities in a safe way?
Okay, thank you, Jeremy. I've used the radio before prior. We were talking about message around early childhood development, breastfeeding positions, health-seeking behavior for mothers. And so we've used the radio station, and it has proved to be a very good platform for us to reach to the community. Like I said, people without knowledge in terms of the local, the official language that we have. And usually they are giving sentiments like after a radio program, they are going to ask you, what are developmental milestones? You know, they were listening, but they do not understand those technical issues. So then we thought if we are to reach out to the community, ensuring that they have the key messages, they have to be translated in a local language. So we did not only do this in our capital city, where we had at least 1.5 million listeners, approximately. We expanded it to different provinces where our sisters are. And others would have like 1.6 million listeners. So they would translate in their own local area language, and people could phone in and interact with them.
That's amazing. So our next question, there's, you know, obviously the work that you all have done is amazing. And I think that there's a question, the question is actually centered around what's been the correlation between the work that the sisters have done, and has it actually helped decrease or flatten the curve?
Okay, so thank you for that. When we started the key messages, we realized that the curve started going down, because I remember each time before we could end our presentation, we would tell them that our emphasis is to ensure that we do not increase the curve. We maintain the system to be able to take care of us, because if we overwhelm the health system, we will not be able to look after ourselves, and the health system will not look after us. So we realized that once we started providing the key messages, the cases reduced. There was a time we didn't have enough funding, so we were down like for almost a month. The cases escalated, and each time I wouldn't sleep, I would say, I need funding to go and speak on the radio. This has to be done now. So once we resumed speaking on the radio, providing the key messages, informing the people that we should not tire, the virus is still with us, we who have a role to play, we saw that the cases have started reducing. So even as I speak to you, the cases are reducing, because I think the highest we've had is over 200 in a day, but at the moment we have less than 100 cases in the country.
That's great. So you were really able to see the impact of the work in real time. That's amazing. So congrats on that. So our next question actually is a really interesting one from Terry, and wants to know, you know, were you able to deliver the messages without any interference or political direction? And were you able to tell your messages in the way that you felt was best? And I think Sister Australia would love to hear from you specifically about Zambia, and then Annie as well, and some of the other countries as well.
Okay, so in my context, I think I was able, or with the sisters, we were able to deliver the messages without political interference. And I think each time we do a prep, we would ensure that we do not become political in the way we deliver our messages. For example, when I go to the community during mobile sensitization, they will tell you that the leadership is not adhering to the mitigation measures. COVID does not exist. So these are issues you talk about when you come on radio, encouraging all leaders at all levels to ensure that we lead by example. We walk our talk, and this is how people are going to adhere. We would not mention political parties, but we'll ensure that we are kind of diplomatic in mentioning leaders at all levels. Could be at church level, community level, national level, but let us keep to the mitigation measures. But overall, I don't think we had political interference. We've had some support coming from local people, local leaders saying what we're doing is good, and they are following and they appreciate.
So from other countries we work with, you know, this is the sisters' superpower, is that they have this like street cred that's just can't be replicated by NGO workers or by the local police or the government. They play at the same level as everyone, and so they can really act and make change as community activators, because they see humans for who they are, and they have the reputation to to have everyone's needs in mind. So I think that that's the superpower that makes these heroes so key in being able to access some of these communities in places where there are really complex political structures or, you know, gang violence or just really hard to reach areas.
That's great. And so, Annie, you know, you actually, on the very first slide when you began talking about the relationship and the partnership between Sisters Rising Worldwide and Alight, you actually mentioned Sister Irene O'Neill, who many of us know and draw immense inspiration from. And she actually made a comment, and I actually want you to expand on as well, that, you know, so Sister Irene has, you know, made the point that working with sisters is like always working in a world of exponential growth and change. It's just not linear growth, right? And, you know, I think that underscores the relationship and why we philosophically align so well. And she's commented on, you know, she thinks that's one of the things that makes the partnership so powerful. And so can you on that as well?
Yeah, and I might even call out, I know Sister Irene's here, she's my partner in Peace and Mischief. And so since she's here, I might call her out and have her expand on that as well. So the partnership has been incredible in the way that sisters are on the ground doing the work. They're fearless. They are the oldest institution out there of humanitarians. And Alight's able to come in on and bring backup. We're able to help with technical support. I mean, sometimes it's financial support, but we're able to really hear and listen to what the sisters want and need. And I think what Alight's been really we've been really keen on is always following the sisters' lead. And so at the end of the day, they're our guiding stars in all of this. And we're just here as the backup support to shine a spotlight on the heroes that they are. And Sister Irene, I know you're out there. Do you want to expand any further?
Well, yeah, I first of all, I just want to thank everybody for being here, because it is one of the most outstanding partnerships that can be imagined, because we both operate thinking sort of exponentially. And I was trying to think of what an example would be. It's like, I know that during COVID, some of our sisters, the transportation had shut down where they live. And so what they asked for were bicycles, because they had the masks now and they had gloves, but they couldn't distribute them. So they wanted bicycles. So they got bicycles. Now, some people might think, oh, good, we got the sisters' bicycles and now they can distribute the masks and gloves. But what would happen is you give a sister a bicycle and they go to somebody's house and deliver the masks and gloves, and they see a little plot of land that maybe could be farmed, but they don't really know how to do it, or they don't own it. So the sister finds a way to get the land available, and then we'll start teaching the farming so that now the people can feed themselves while they continue to live through COVID. So it's that's the kind of exponential growth. It's always looking for that corner of how can we continue the flourishing of people. And other people the story that they might think in their head is, oh, well, I got him a bike. But I just want you to know that the real stories even flow from there. It's that exponential growth. And Alight understands that. They operate like that as well. It's just thrilling. So thanks, Annie.
Thank you both. Love that explanation, Sister Irene. Thank you as always. Our next question is actually from Shakat. And the question is this: what is one key reason for the acceptability of the messages through sisters interest and response?
So sisters are humble, right? And so I'm going to speak, I'm going to toot their horns for them. I think it is the fact that sisters share their lives with people. Many of us travel and we work in these areas, but these sisters are there when a child knocks on their door and loses their tooth, or their dog dies, or their grandparent died of COVID. And so that trust just can't be replicated by many others in the community. And so I think because it comes from the loving arms and almost like that sanctuary feel that sisters give to the communities, and it's almost like force field of making people feel safe, they're much more inclined to accept and understand messages from sisters. But Sister Streeta, I think also it'd be good to hear, how has this made you feel being able to share this, this messaging with your communities?
I think, well, I thought, even myself, I was asking myself that question, like, why are people listening to me? Why are people listening to us? And even when others speak the same language, the same message, they are not following. And you see the honesty that they would come with when they are sharing with you what they have not followed prior to the message that you are providing. And I felt really humbled. I think I would simply say it's being with the people, whether there's a pandemic or not, whether they are doing fine or they are not, they are our people. We live with them, we understand them. They see us every day, we interact with them. And I think it's, like I said, being able to provide an example, being a leader who is able to do what you actually ask the people to do. So if we tell the people to mask up, to distance, social distance, we are practicing that. So not only during the pandemic period, but we have been there with the people, understanding their needs. And so we come out like, here is a leader in the community. Here's this sister who is the parish leader, and she's providing these messages. She has been doing this all the time. So there's that trust already created with our community.
That's great. So we have a question that actually is short and easy, but I think maybe somewhat difficult. So the question is actually from Richard Leatherman, and I love this question. What do sisters feel that they need most?
Okay, now or in the long term. Okay, so I would respond to it in two ways. I think we still need to have sponsorship around provision of key messages, whatever platform we are using, whether it's through billboards, through the radio, through television. If it's mobile sensitization, like Sister Irene said, we need a bicycle to reach the far-fetched communities. We still need to talk to our people to adhere to these mitigation measures. COVID is still here. And if we relax, then it means that we are not providing the support for our communities. We need to be at par and also provide those. So we still need the supplies. I will tell you that when I interact with the people, someone told me, a lady who sells in the market says, sister, I actually have one mask. So sometimes when I reach the marketplace, I realize that I've forgotten my mask and I will not be allowed access to the market and I need to go in the market. I'll wait for someone to come out of the market and I ask for their mask, a stranger, and I'll wear that mask and I'll tell them as long as I get to the market, inside the market, I'll bring it back. So she goes in the market, then she sends another one who's going out to give back the stranger the mask. And she says, I've put myself at risk because I can't afford a mask, and it's a reality. So still people need supplies like hand washing soap, hand sanitizers. Our hospitals are in need of protective garments to keep themselves safe.
That's great. We have another question from Hassan, and is there any research that had been done to help determine that the radio is the most effective medium among many, and in what circumstances or contexts can it be replicated elsewhere?
There hasn't been any official research that has been done. So while we've determined that the radio is a good platform for our communities, our local communities, is through the interaction. These radio programs have been done live, and you find that the moderator will ask you even to go for an hour, even if you've paid for 30 minutes, because of the audience that we have. Phone calls start coming in even before we open them officially. And we are seeing that there are a lot of people listening to us. There are a lot of people who want to contribute, who want to hear more. So each week that we are on radio, people are phoning in, and sometimes we've received feedback from the radio station that people, even after we leave, so the days that follow, they would phone in and say, when is that program coming? I want to say something about it. So the sisters are coming next week on Tuesday. Just hold on with the question. So this is how we've gauged that the radio platform is actually working for us to pass on this information. Perhaps we could engage in how we can do research, formal research on that one.
So Annie, what you actually mentioned during your presentation, the public health messaging that was a co-creation of IDEO.org, Alight, Sisters, and many of our other customers around the world. And we've actually gotten a couple of questions around that. Can you actually, can both of you just talk about this? What were some of the challenges that you all saw in terms of conveying the messaging, especially at a time and in some places where it was not believed to actually be a problem or a challenge, or whether it even existed?
And that continues to be a challenge. I mean, all around the world in our own country. So some of the things that we heard were, you know, I mean, languages. There's so many different languages in this world, and many it's, you know, it's hard to find translators for. But there's also the access to literacy. And so we're really lucky to have partnered with IDEO.org, an amazing human-centered design, a social impact firm that worked very, very hard to not leave any of those people behind. So in countries or places where there were low literacy rates and we knew that the message wouldn't get across, they went a step further and made messaging much more pictorial. More pictures, less words, created TV ads, even created videos of children dancing with local music. And so, and all of the messaging too was very culturally relevant. So actually this messaging wasn't created by Alight and IDEO.org. It was designed with refugees living in Uganda settlements, with Catholic sisters around the world working with a lot of these communities. And so they're really the ones that led us into, okay, how do we make sure that this messaging can really be conveyed to so many different communities around the world, and then activate the sisters to be able to carry on that trusted information.
That's great. And Sister Estrada, did you what challenges did you encounter or did you see when you were conveying the messages in Zambia?
Yeah, so like I said already, it's issues to do with leadership. If the leaders are not adhering to the mitigation measures, it becomes very difficult for our community to adhere. So at the same time, we realized that there were groups that were left out, like the young kids. There were no platforms where they could interact and share about like their well-being, how they feel not going to school. So that was a challenge. We also realized that we needed to speak to these young ones who are not at school because they are bored at home. And sometimes parents would share that, I don't know what to do with my kids. The whole time they are with me, I do not know how to look after them. The teacher should take them back quickly. But the reality was that they're supposed to be together. So we've seen that leadership needs to pull up their socks, even in our country, as they tell the people to keep to mitigation measures. Each time they are addressing a public audience, they're supposed to show by example. When a priest is celebrating Mass, what does he do? Then the congregation will follow. So wherever, at whichever level we are at, we need to adhere to that. So for me, that was one thing that I really observed was a challenge. If we are not leading by example, no matter how we're going to speak, the people will not follow.
That's amazing, thank you. Annie, you mentioned at the end of the presentation that, and during it as well, right, that the work with the sisters, especially during COVID, has been done in Latin America, Asia, Africa, everywhere. So the question we have is around like, where else can this be done? And what are the, you know, are there any limits to where this work with sisters can be accomplished?
Mm-hmm. I look at Sister Irene because I know she just wants to shake her head and say, this could be everywhere. Yeah, so we're doing that ongoing work, and it is limitless because these sisters are continuing. I mean, yes, they're doing a response, but you heard the prevention work is really where this all begins. That's, you know, that's education. That's really identifying the root causes of some of these issues that sisters understand. And so now COVID still exists, and there's a lot of countries that are riding the wave of the evolution and are 6 months behind some of us in the United States, or or other countries. And so we're really trying to now focus on areas that continue to be in those critical stages, so that we don't leave anyone behind, and really hear from sisters around the world on how can we work together now to create resiliency within these communities and prevent the communities, but also the sisters, from ever being vulnerable to something like this again. And so we're always out there having these conversations, looking for partners to talk about, okay, what is COVID response 2.0? What does that look like? And how do we really unleash that creativity of sisters to meet them where they are in the communities and make sure that everyone is not only just prepared, but feels like they can live meaningful lives from this really, really difficult year we've had.
Yep, and Sister Irene, please expand.
Yeah, I'd just like to expand too. I think, because the sisters are on the front lines of the vulnerable communities. When the realities of COVID starts to change, they're right there and understanding it. So I remember at first we were doing gloves and masks, but eventually we were doing food. And then when food happened, they were doing farming. And so it's a matter of staying with knowing that the dignity of the person counts, and the full life, being able to live a full life and to pay attention to that. And so when you're living close with the families, you start finding out, you hear about it, you hear about the next move of COVID through the lives of the families. Again, in another place where there were a lot of migrant, where their people in the small villages were migrants, and when they had to go home, suddenly families expanded and they had many more people to feed. And so that was another big response. So to stay in touch with the sisters, they will tell you because they're there. They know what's happening, and what Sisters Rising Worldwide tries to do is to stay in touch with the nuns to get those messages. So and Alight is obviously doing it too. So we're sharing those messages as fast as we can with each other. But the sisters will tell you what it is.
That's amazing. Sister Irene, Sister Estrida, and Annie, I think you all have given an amazing overview of both the work that has been done and the work that can continue to be done. And it's super inspirational. So thank you to all three of you. Perfect timing to close out our time and presentation here today. So, again, I will thank the three of you for all of your time, energy, and work that you, and the daily inspiration that you all provide to us. What you're going to see pop up on the screen now is going to be a QR code. And what you're going to be able to do is just pull out your camera. If you have an iPhone, you just actually have to open up the camera, and this is going to be a link. So just pull up your camera like this, aim it at the QR code, and it will pop up a link for you to go to our Workshare series website. If you have an Android, now we're going to pop some instructions in if you have an Android or Samsung phone, but you actually just need to hit the home screen and a QR code icon should pop up to the left. If you don't, you actually do have to download it from the settings. So you can go ahead and do that if you want to see the link to our full series. So as we said at the beginning, our Workshare series is about shining a light on the amazing work that our staff volunteers are doing around the world, and unleashing that abundance everywhere. It's a 6-part series that we're doing so we can actually draw a deeper connection for you all to the work that we're doing. And you'll be able to see the next series. So the next one is actually going to be about mental health, and it's going to be some mental health and humanitarian work. It's going to be next Thursday at the same time, with one of our incredible Alight Somali team members. So you can see the link there to the rest of them that are going to be coming up in the series, and there's additional information in there as well. So again, we want to thank Sister Estrida, Sister Irene, Sister and Annie for, yeah, my gosh, I almost think of you as a sister because you do so much amazing work with them. So thank you all very much. We do have a tradition here at Alight when we're on Zoom calls. We love to come off mute and say goodbye to everybody and wave. No obligation if you don't want to come off mute or go on the camera, but if you do, please do. We want to thank everyone for your time and energy today and the amazing questions. So thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nice job.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you
all.
Bye.
Yay. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Great, super, thank you.
Wonderful. Bye, everybody.
Bye,
Sister
Irene.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, Olivia.
Taranga, how are you?